have that accurate. It's in the staff report, but I've slept since then and haven't quite remembered the day. We'll go over kind of the purpose of the handbook. The handbook serves as that cumulative reference for all policies, anything that governs currently all of council actions, council behaviors, council protocols, but also for commissions. And part of this process will unveil a very, very draft commission handbook that we'll bring back for council. We have the triangle of policy, process, and product, which is a key component of our handbook. Council establishes policy. City clerk, in consultation with the city attorney, oversees that process, and myself, through my staff, provides the product for the community and for the organization as a whole. Council is the policy-making body of the city. Council deals with all those administrative functions through myself, and this is just the stuff that's taken verbatim from the municipal code. This, for lack of a better term, the handbook is a central repository of all of the municipal code sections, all of the policies that have been adopted and resolutions that have been adopted over the years into one specific area. Based on the comments received last time from council, I went through and made some proposed modifications that are included in the staff report in red line version. One of the things that was updated was the current handbook simply states that the mayor and vice mayor shall be selected by the council, but it's silent as to those protocols. I was able to, based on some other jurisdictions that the clerk's office was able to provide me, to identify the timing and selection in both election and alternate years. The proposed language states that following a general municipal election, the mayor and vice mayor shall be selected at the meeting where election results are confirmed and the new city council members are seated. So I found some cities would specifically say a first one in December or something like that. Specifically when the majority members of this council were seated, we did it at a special meeting, and I thought it flowed a little bit better, allowed folks to kind of enjoy the evening, and so that would be an appropriate time for it to happen. And so this language mirrors how we did it last time, and I thought it's a really good way to specifically broaden the scope of that particular section. Changes to city departments. Past handbooks have had several pages devoted to departments and divisions, and it seemed like every time we do a reorganization or change the name from a pop team to a major crimes or vice versa, then that would necessitate that we pass a new resolution changing those things. Quite frankly, our budget is adopted both either through mid-year or at general cycles on a much more frequent basis than we do the handbook. And we have a list of all full-time employees that's included in there. And so I thought that's the appropriate place for those to reside. And so I'm proposing to remove the city departments from that particular thing. Study sessions, based on the discussion last time, I went ahead and expanded on the language that is currently there, making it more clear that study sessions are special meetings. The council may take any official action except for adopting ordinance. The other section that I proposed is kind of just housekeeping. And currently, there's a pretty lengthy chapter or two on the obligations of a council member after an absence. That wasn't some direction I received, but as we just tried to clean it up, and as I looked at other ones, it's, you know, sometimes they talk about boiling it down to its most basic, and I think most folks, when they take on the challenge of running for council and choosing to be a council member, I know that Natalie has a pretty extensive orientation and folks understand their obligations. The addition is, I know while we don't generally have council members call in remotely just because of the Brown Act, I do know, talking with council members, that when they have traveled and had to have an absence, they do follow the meeting and understand what's going on. And so even so far as having their one-on-ones with me to go over the agenda prior to not being there. So I found that this council is good, and I would expect that moving forward, most folks through the orientation process would understand their obligations and wouldn't necessarily need this. But again, it's the direction of council, so I'll leave that up to you folks when we get to the end of the presentation here. Meeting components. That's a long section that talks about, you know, obviously the public comment. There's several references to public comment throughout the document, which are important because that is one of the primary purposes of the meeting, is to allow public comment at those portions where we can. I more clearly identify the purpose of the council reports section where you folks give your comments on things that you've done on behalf of the city, events that you've been at, that sort of thing. Added additional language to the public hearing section, which clarifies additional reasons for public hearing outside of the typical grant ones that we have to do. And then I removed the what I would call a redundant section at the end that said council reports, because we had merged those into the beginning, and simply just left that at the future agenda items section. Not necessarily a decorum item, but it's under that section of the handbook. I had council members express, and then there is a trend in local governance to start to address the electronic communications. This is one of those things that you're seeing more and more cities propose policies to add sections restricting the use of electronic communications from the dais. It is, when folks talk about it, I know at least at Cal Cities conferences, at the ICMA conference that I was recently at, those cities that don't have a policy on it, it has become a problem with open governance, and council members or commissioners specifically texting with members of the audience and that sort of thing during a meeting, which in this case would be a violation of the Brown Act. City commissions. When you take a look at the proposed amendments to the handbook, you'll see red lines of all of the sections related to the commissions. There are several items in the handbook that are unique to the council. We frequently say that commissioners serve at the pleasure of council. They're appointed by the mayor with the consensus of the full council, and they can be removed from council by one council member bringing that forward. And so we thought it would be best, and again, I'm thankful to the clerk's office for pulling the mailing list and getting 7 to 9 different copies of handbooks that other municipalities up and down the state have used for their commissions. And most of them are pretty close to the size of the council handbook, if not just smaller. There's a lot of things that they deal with. And so I said in my opening that I've included a very basic draft. I wasn't comfortable presenting a red line that removes that section and not at least have the discussion start to happen on what a commission handbook would look like. You'll notice in there the application period is currently left to the discretion of the staff. We wanted to see moving forward as we develop that, what is council's preference for timing and process. Obviously there's a difference between an unexpected vacancy. Council had previously approved alternates, and so it adds for some continuity. We've had a couple of resignations lately, and we have those alternates to be able to backfill that. Council will take action to do so later tonight on one of the commissions, but separate and apart from those resignations, when we have terms ending at the end of the year, we would like some guidance from council on the length of period that you'd like to see open. Is it until we get a significant response? We were very fortunate with the last go around of filling commission members that we had a really great turnout, one of the greatest turnouts that we've seen in years. And we would expect that would continue to happen with the public's interest in local government. The other thing that we had talked about is the interview process. Previously, we have done it where the mayor, myself, and then the staff liaison conducts the interviews. I know the mayor, since it's a mayoral appointment with the consensus of council, we've talked about either him and I doing it or full interviews. We have in the past done at least the planning commission interviews in front of the full council, and that's something that we could do at a study session. We've done it at special meetings before, but we could schedule it. If we identify the process and the timing for the applications, we could schedule that so that it dovetails well with a nice study session and utilize the study session for the interview process. Other items for consideration, obviously because of kind of the emerging trends that we see and different things, we believe it would behoove us to have mandatory ethics and harassment training for commissioners the same way we do for council members. Obviously an overview of the Brown Act, the city attorney's office has provided that before. For folks that haven't served on a commission, or a committee that are subject to the Brown Act. There's some rules there that govern even talking with folks. Sometimes it's unfortunate that folks want to just get together and kind of talk about some matters that are going to be coming from before them, but the Brown Act precludes that, and so it's good to kind of give that overview to folks. Also the role of the chair and the vice chair, and what that process looks like. Right now, each committee or commission utilizes their own process. They do a nomination process that's very close to mirroring what council uses for the mayor and vice mayor. And then lastly, the FPPC requirement. Commissioners are required to submit the same Form 700s that council members have to. And it's important, I think, during the application process, there's things that we could do through the clerk's office to make folks aware of all of those things. Even before they submit their application, they understand that there's a lot of specific criteria that they will have to understand and things that they will have to agree to, and perhaps even an acknowledgement as part of the application may be something the council may want to consider. And so with that, my recommendation this evening is council direct staff to bring back a resolution to adopt proposed changes of the handbook, which could be as proposed or any changes that council may have based on the discussion tonight, and then have staff bring back a final draft of the commission handbook after we receive comment and direction tonight, which would probably be a subsequent study session where we go over the red line again and you folks could take a look at it. And then after that, that would have to be done. I don't know that would have to be adopted through resolution. City Attorney, Ms. Dawn?
The handbook, typically it would be adopted through a resolution.
Okay, so we would do a resolution for that one at that time as well.
For both handbooks?
We would, hopefully we have direction enough tonight that we could do the council handbook, but when we get to such time that the commission handbook is to be adopted, it would be done by resolution as well. Questions, comments? I know we've talked about, there were a couple things that I added that have been discussed slightly, but not necessarily during a study session. So I just want to make sure that as this will be the guiding document for this council until council chooses to change it, that you folks have an opportunity to review it, understand the changes that are being proposed, and those meet the direction that you've previously provided.
Council, how would we like to do this? Do you want to go once? Do you want to go to public comment?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So at this time, I'd like to open up public comment. The study session are considered special meetings under the Brown Act, and accordingly, comments from the public are limited to items listed on the agenda. Public comment will be accepted during each agenda item, at the end of each agenda item, and a maximum of 3 minutes is allowed for each speaker. Please begin your comments by stating your name and providing your city of residence. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and open up public comment. I believe your mic's on. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Dennis Ham. I am a resident of the city of Hanford. And according to some of the documentation I've looked at in both of these handbooks, it looks like if I'm a member of a commission, I need to stick. At this point in time, I am a member of the planning commission. However, my question or comment that might need some clarification is, if I'm speaking about a policy issue and not necessarily an item that was discussed at a planning commission meeting, it looks like I'm supposed to speak. I can only speak as a planning commission member if I am speaking, as a planning commission member, I need to speak for the whole body. However, if I'm questioning or commenting about a policy item, not necessarily a decision that was discussed at a planning commission meeting, why do I have to speak as the spokesperson for the planning commission? I'd like to see if that could be clarified a little bit, because a lot of times when I come up here, I try not to speak about a planning commission item or decision, but I try to speak more on a policy level. I'd like to see if that could be clarified. Another item that I'd like to see clarified is the election of the chairperson and vice chair. Over the years, I've been a member of the commissions for quite over many years, and the procedure seems to be different every time. Not necessarily every time, but sometimes the clerk is the one who actually conducts the election and asks for nominations, and sometimes the current chair does that. And I'd like to see if that could be clarified or cleaned up too, so that it is either the clerk or the current chairperson who conducts the election of the officers. And the last comment I think I made at a previous meeting was about the election itself. If there is more than one candidate for office, I would like to have it also clarified that people who are voting understand that they have only one vote for the particular office. So, for instance, if there was two people nominated and the first candidate is put up for or voted on first and not the second person, if everybody votes for the first person, the second person never gets a chance to get a vote at all. So I'd like to see if we could clarify the actual procedure, even though I believe that Ty says that it is based on Robert's rules or the other one that we use as for clarification. But I'd like to see that at least clarified in the statement so everybody understands that when you vote, you only have one vote for either one of those two people. So if you want the second person, you need to vote, or you need to abstain on the first one and vote on the second one. The second name is brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bob Ramos. I live here in the city. I have confusion on my part. You can clarify it. First of all, this meeting, under this agenda, that we're in a study session at this time, as it says right here, study session, which is just that, a study. From what I understand, the Brown Act recognizes regular meetings, special meetings, emergency meetings, and closed sessions meetings among yourselves. I'm sort of confused as you said, Mr. Mayor, a little bit ago, as Mr. Sequenta said on one of these slides, it says that the study session is a special meeting, or maybe you have it backwards, that a special meeting is a study session. I got confused on that part, but since it's not a study session is not recognized in the Brown Act, how can it be used in our verbiage here? How can it be intertwined with special meeting, the word study session? Study session is just that. You can have a study session, but it's not recognized in the Brown Act. That's on you. But it can't be, in my opinion, entwined with a special meeting. That's a separate type of meeting as stated in the Brown Act. Maybe that can be clarified. And I go back December 20th of 22 when you were newly seated. When you guys voted for the downtown beautification project in a study session. And you know it was illegal. And Mr. Mayor, you did ask, can we vote on this issue in this study session? You asked of the attorney, Mr. Ty at the time. And his response was sort of weak, but you went ahead and voted. Illegal, but it got by. So that's the kind of thing we can't be doing, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment items or members wishing to speak at public comment?
Mr. Mayor, Mark Prater, Hanford, I already raised the issue with you, but you try to do it within less than a minute. And I don't normally speak on anything but the park. The only reason I'm speaking on this is it's a matter of public access for media and for the press, and anything that governs that, I think I have a right to speak on it. I think I have expertise in that area. And so as I stated to you earlier and tried to give you a heads up, there was no internet service in North Hanford as far as I know today. They were working on wires. We had no TV and no internet. So people that wanted to download the full agenda with regard to this item, which is an important item, didn't have the opportunity to do so. I also called the city and I called Mr. Johnson. And the clerk did call me back. But, you know, it creates an impediment. This is a very important issue for the community. Even though there's not a lot of people here, they probably don't know about it. I don't see the other paper here. So I don't know if they reported on it or not. But, you know, I think it's I understand you want to move ahead, you want to do your business, I understand all that. But I think it would be advisable from the benefit of the public and their ability to digest what's going on, that you discuss it. My suggestion would be to discuss it tonight and then carry it into another session where, because I think, clarify for me, did you say you could vote on it tonight if you need to? I know there are multiple amendments that you're going to do and all that, but can you vote on anything tonight on this during the study session? Can you clarify that for me?
After we close the public comment section.
Okay, so that's my point. People should have the opportunity to download the agenda packet. It was not available in North Hanford today. I realize they have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but people are very busy. Personally, I was doing a concert with the King Symphony, very difficult to do. Took up all day Sunday. We had a little tragedy in our family, and people are very busy, and the fact they should have the full amount of time to look at this, which includes up to the time of the meeting, and all day long there was no internet. So that's my point. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
And just for the record, the agenda was posted, Madam Clerk, on Thursday evening, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that was posted
4 p.m.
on 4 p.m. Thursday evening, and that was on the website and sent out to if people were signed up.
Correct. There was no problem with the notifications. There was the meeting before.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think,
So Thursday at 4 p.m. So, and the regulations is 72 hours. Is that correct? And so 72 hours prior to the internet outage, and maybe I can ask the city attorney if that is. Did the city, are we in the confines of the law by a proper notification of the meeting?
Yeah, correct. Even if the city had only posted it on Friday, the way the law reads is only 72 hours it must be posted. So even if for some reason it's not able to be accessed because of an internet outage, that doesn't really change the city's requirements as far as posting it in 72 hours prior.
All right, thank you.
And then also we have a full copy too over at the library and then at the office as well.
correct.
Okay. And then if anybody called up, they would be directed to either thing if they were having that issue like we had today.
Correct. I was able to pull it up on the internet just to double check when Mr. Prater called me.
I think the centralized, it was North Hanford. I know at school today, we didn't have any internet issues and we're on 11th Avenue, but North 11th Avenue evidently had some issues as
Yeah, I
Councilwoman Morrow was saying.
I had issues, but I was able to pull up my hotspot and was able to study today using.
I just want to make sure that we are in the confines that we had the actual access given to the public. All right, seeing that, let's move on.
Mr. Mayor, also if I can add to that, we not only have full hard copies of the agenda and all supporting documents at the library and at our office, we are also required to post a copy of the agenda on the outside of our building at the front when you go to the 319 Dowdy. There's a box there on the wall, and we post a copy of the agenda there. As Natalie said, that was done 4 o'clock on Thursday, a full 49 hours before the 72-hour time limit. Technically, we could post each Saturday at 4 p.m. If we're going to have a 4 p.m. study session and still meet the 72 hours. But we post the agenda. This council directed us to put it out a day early so that folks have an opportunity to either read the hard copy or to get it online. Also to clarify, our system allows for notifications when it's posted. We're required to have the agenda posted. Sometimes there's errors and those notifications don't make it out through email. That's a courtesy to folks. It does not impact our legal posting of the agenda.
So the agenda was posted 5 days prior to this meeting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, so are there any other items on, are there any others with public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Open up to council comments. Do you have any comments for staff? or how do we want to do I know there's multiple slides. Do we want to take one slide at a time and discuss, or?
I don't know if we need that much discussion. I'll start off with myself and we'll see what's necessary. But having reviewed the proposed edits, I found them all to be common sense updates. And I like how it's cleaner, taking the commission stuff out. And I want to acknowledge the work of the clerk and the city manager in bringing this, coming back with this. And I think it's a nice improvement. And I'm ready to move approval when everybody else is. The other thing I wanted to say is consider the source. I love running into Mr. Ramos at the post office, and we always greet each other warmly. But to suggest that we are operating illegally is, I'll just leave it at that. I disagree.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Sharp. Councilwoman Morrow, do you have any questions for staff?
Sure. Well, I know we had a couple clarification questions of clarification too. I know reading through the commission handbook, it did specify that you can go as an either or. You can be a spokesperson for the commission, or you can be speaking as a citizen. So you're not obligated to be just as a commissioner, but it just asks that you were representing things basically. Let's see. And then, yeah, as far as the study session versus special, I mean, I think that at that point it's semantics, because as it's been laid out multiple times, there is no such thing as a study session per se, per law. That's why we identify as a special meeting. But we put it as a study session, I believe, just to kind of have this clarification of what we intend to accomplish, you know, having that sit down and really being able to go over the topic in depth and have that discussion before, you know, whether it comes back to council or not, for formal adoption or whatever needs to happen. But oh yeah, so I just wanted clarification too on like the electronics communications. Obviously no issue with having that be a thing in there. I guess my only concern is if some of us having, you know, small children at home, or we have people that we take care of that are elderly or anything like that, of just being able to have that available if we need to be contacted in an emergency situation. The way that I read it, it was more like just, you know, don't text about business, but yeah, something happens at home, glancing at your phone, no big deal.
If in the presentation, Mr. Cifuentes said, you know, contacting with people in the audience and you know, during the meeting, that would infringe on, and I think that is unacceptable. I think we're here on the dais, and we need to not have a conversation outside us five if we're having council comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we had that out there, like having it available as an emergency contact is.
And I didn't, you know, I'm gonna go back and take a look at it here. I wanted to write it so it wouldn't preclude folks from getting an emergency call, stepping down off the dais and accepting that.
Okay.
This just talks about actively using it for communications during a meeting.
So if that does, I mean, as you just said, stepping down from the dais, how would that, in running the meeting, would we call, you know, halt the meeting for like just 5 minutes or so to allow them to address that? Or should the council member notify, you know, the council that, hey, I might be receiving something? If
No,
how does that look?
I would envision it, because Ms. Moore mentioned it, if she were to get an emergency call, she would probably just say, council, I'm sorry, I just got an emergency call, I need to take this, I need to step down. If it's a matter that doesn't require all 5 council members and there's discussion going on, I would see no problem, and Ms. White can correct me if I'm wrong, with that council member going into the West Wing, having that call, and just coming back and joining.
Well, if I remember right, when we brought this forward, our concern was the aesthetics, right? If we're up here on the dais on our phone. And I think you've covered it pretty clearly in the section in the handbook where it It says shall not use electronic communications with anyone in the public or between themselves while at the dais or participating in a public meeting. So, I mean, emergency situation, I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, that's why we all have cell phones, right? So we can be in contact with our families and people can get hold of us if need be. But I think the way it's worded, perfect. We just, aesthetically, we don't want to be showing, you know, that or give the appearance that we're communicating with others during a portion of that meeting, which would be inappropriate. So I'm all for it as well. I think in that case, I know in my situation, if it were to happen, I would just, you know, politely interrupt and, ask the mayor either, allow me to, a few minutes to step back away, or if we need to take a short recess, we could do that as well. But I think we're good either way. So I think the wording in the handbook is fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I read it the same way too. I wasn't sure if we needed just that little blurb in there as a clarification, so it's not a gray area matter and people aren't getting disciplined for having their phone out. Even though, or that's saying no electronic communications, but we also realize that we're humans with other responsibilities.
But I also think that those conversations would be outside the meeting and not publicly, saying, Ms. Moore, can you get up?
I do want to revisit or just discuss maybe a little bit amongst ourselves here is, and I know that my colleagues have already kind of touched on it, but the separation between a study session and a special meeting and whether we can or cannot take action on items. I mean, there's a belief out there that we cannot, and we're governed by the Brown Act, and we've had multiple conversations regarding this particular issue since I've been sworn in on the dais, and I really like to kind of put this issue to bed for the community. My understanding is in line, I believe, with some of my colleagues up here that talk about there is no definition study session. So do we change that? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. Do we just call the special meeting? Do we, or do we? I mean, because I think the way you have it worded in the handbook is clear that the council may meet in the study session for the purpose of acquiring information on a particular subject or subjects, collaborating with the public. These sessions are considered special meetings and shall be open to the public and comply with the Brown Act. So I guess I'm looking for the attorney maybe to weigh in here, please.
Yeah, so I will tell you, study sessions are extremely common amongst other cities. If you guys are solo in your use of study sessions, anything that is not, just to cover like the semantics of the issue, anything that is not a regular meeting is a special meeting. So your guys' municipal code says your regular meeting is on, the Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. So by you guys meeting at 5 o'clock and posting an agenda for a meeting at 5 o'clock, that automatically makes it a special meeting. So that's why it's clarified as a special meeting. I look at study session as more like in your guys' regular meetings, and that's when you clarify between like the consent calendar and general business. Those are also terms that aren't in the Brown Act, but they're used to differentiate between the types of business that you guys are handling on the agenda. So when you guys are doing a study session, again, it is kind of, talk, give direction. As far as what action you can take, that's fully dictated by how the agenda item is worded. So if it says, hey, we're just going to have a discussion on this, then you probably can't take any action. Tonight, your guys' study session says, go back to it. It says, and formal direction from council on which elements to include in the final document. So no, you guys can't approve the final document tonight, but yes, you can take action to give the formal direction on what is included in the final document. So again, the language that is in the agenda is what is controlling as far as what action you can take at any portion of any meeting, whether that's special or regular. That's what dictates it, and the purpose of that is that the public has notice by saying that you guys are going to give formal direction of what you guys actually are going to be doing.
And that's in line too with the kind of the subject matter that got brought up before about the downtown improvement. And that situation, we gave direction to staff of what the vision we were looking at, but we have not yet gone to a final vote on what the downtown improvement plan will actually entail. So yeah, we gave direction at that, but we didn't take a formal vote on what the whole plan will finally look like.
But also, as the city manager or city attorney was mentioning, it was in how the agenda item was worded. So going back to December 20th, it was four-way stops or roundabout. What direction would you want? And so we were just giving direction to the staff in regards to the RFP book.
What we'd like to look at when,
Yes.
yeah.
So it was all in the wording that was, so that it didn't come to an official vote, but it was more so, hey, we want this direction or this direction.
Correct. A lot of times, I mean, that's common when cities are up here making decisions. It's not always feasible for staff to prepare an entire plan on, putting a four-way stop somewhere if that's not how council wants to proceed. And so sometimes they need that initial, give us direction on what you want us to go before you actually vote on where you're going to go. And as long as the agenda covers that in the language, then you guys are able to take that action, even if it's not the formal action.
Okay. And also going over like the regular meeting versus a special meeting and seeing that, or the study session, seeing and just drawing on your analogy with the regular meeting, we have consent items in there, we have general business, we have public hearings. Those are all in the regular meeting. So in a sense, at 5 p.m., it is a special meeting, and the item of the study session is kind of like a consent calendar item. So my thought is, do we call it a special meeting in closed session, or just study session? It doesn't say anything about a special meeting, only in the public comment section where it says study sessions are considered special meetings under the Brown Act. That's what it says in there. That's the only terminology that we see a special meeting. But I'm also, kind of afraid to, cry wolf. We have a special meeting here, special meeting here, special meeting. And just, we're always having special meetings and the public's like, hey, this is something special I have to go to. And so,
Yeah, I would think that the breadth of the confusion or the questioning about what's a special meeting and what's not is really rather narrow as far as you take the community as a whole. And so we spell out in our agenda, it's a special meeting, and if anybody has a question, they can call a clerk or call one of us, or call the city manager. So I'm comfortable with the general wording as we've
Sure.
been doing it.
I'm just throwing it out there, but yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just dovetail on what the city attorney had said, in specifically to what Ms. Sharp said, we clarify that the study session is a special meeting. As she stated, the Brown Act recognizes a regular meeting, which for us is Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Any gathering of this council at any other time, regardless of what you want to call it, is a special meeting. Study sessions and work sessions are quite common in the industry with cities across the United States. My directors will attest to the fact that I am a stickler for agenda wording language, because it's very important, not just to say what action the council could take, but more importantly is, folks, for part of the reason why you have the Brown Act requiring that the agenda is posted so far in advance is because people do have busy lives. And quite frankly, we want folks to be able to read the agenda without going through the full packet. And there should be sufficient wording in that agenda, for folks to say, that's something I really want to, they're going to discuss this, or they're going to take action. That's why you'll see all of the items start with approvals or acceptance, because that is the formal action that we are asking this council to take. And so when folks read the agenda items, specifically at study sessions, again, to reinforce that they are special meetings, that's why folks can only make public comment at study sessions based on those items that are listed on that agenda. Because it is a special meeting and the Brown Act says that you can only comment on those items that are on the agenda. If you want to make general public comment about matters that are within your jurisdiction, that has to be at the regular meeting, the 7 p.m. public comment.
And for clarification, I think we also need to add in there, I think some of the confusion may have arose with the old website, where there was wording on there specifically in there regarding study sessions, and I'm not quoting the words, but it was basically the council will not take formal action or something of that direction. So that has been since removed. We've clarified this, we've talked about it, and I'm comfortable with the wording and with the advice of our council to move forward. So I'm good at it. The last thing I do want to touch on for me is I know in the staff report tonight, and again, just to clarify, the recommendation for us tonight regarding this is that the city council provide direction to staff on the final amendments to the handbook and direct staff to bring back a resolution to adopt the changes. So we're not making any formal decision tonight. We're providing direction to staff to clarify and clean up the existing handbook, and then at a future time that will be brought back to council for adoption of the resolution. And again, I'm sure there'll be public comment made available and a review of that finalized document once it's done. Is that my correct assumption?
Correct. Based on the direction the council gives, as we frequently will do, when that item comes back, you'll have as attachments, you'll have the resolution, you will have a clean version of the document, and then a red line version of the document, so the public can see all of the changes between the previous version and what ultimately led to that clean version.
And then lastly, just, thank you to Natalie and Mario. I know this has been a challenging endeavor, but I also want to thank my colleague down at the end, Councilwoman Morrow, who brought this forward, requesting the future agenda item to have these discussions, because we knew there were some discrepancies and, or concerns in the existing handbook, and it was time to, to clean that up. So thank you, and I'll yield. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just have one comment in regard to the wording study session. Does that, that in itself, if it's, we as a council will give staff direction, perhaps that's the only thing that we can vote yes on. Is that correct?
It depends on the item, sir. And I can't think of another one right now. We're going to, if I'm looking ahead to the next meeting, we are going to have a presentation from the Carnegie updating on their operations. That's informational only. We will seek no direction from council. The one item we are going to bring back is the item that council directed us to bring back to look at revenue generating options. We will ask for direction from council on which ones, if any, council would like to pursue and what options. Sometimes that doesn't require council to give direction. You folks, through your discussion, through the public comment, you may determine that we're not ready to go there. We need more information. But depending on the staff report, if I and staff believe we've got to that point that council may be able to give some direction, go ahead. And it doesn't necessarily mean formal direction. There is going to be a very rare time where a formal direction, I don't want to back myself in a corner, but I can almost say without fail that I will never bring you an item that the formal action is going to be taken at a study session and it's not coming back for a regular meeting. That's, we are going to get direction. Sometimes it's official direction, and that's where we're going to go. We're setting this aside and we're moving forward. But ultimately, we'll bring an item back to you, either at consent. I will tell you generally, in the past, these have always come back as a consent calendar item for resolution, but that doesn't preclude anyone from pulling the matter and having discussion on it. It's just resolutions. Typically, we've gone through 2 study sessions. We've had significant discussion. I'm sensing there will be minor, if any, changes to the red line that I presented to you tonight. So it makes sense for that to be. By now, I should have memorized the language for consent calendar items or routine. It will be a fairly routine matter, and so I will put it there with understanding that folks are always welcome to pull that item.
Yeah, well, my only concern would be when people read the study session, they would they would look at it as just a study session, nothing that, maybe they need to, come to the meeting itself and, listen to what's being said. I mean, it's something that, the wording itself doesn't make it like where, okay, the public needs to be here to listen to what's going on, just like a regular meeting.
No, and
That
that's
would
why
be my concern.
I place a strong emphasis on that wording, for folks to read that agenda and make their determination as to whether they think it's a session that they need to be here for.
And I look at study session items as where we can all sit down and just, hash out like the details, and it's like we're studying, and then we're just getting information where we're not making a fight yet between each other, and just like, do we want to go this route or we want to go this route, and what is the consensus say on the council? So that's the way I look at study sessions, and as Mr. Cifuentes says, is that when he brings it back, it'll be a consent calendar item. And if anybody wants to pull it at that time for future discussion, or they bring up some points, I think that is, that's their, opportunity to do so during that public comment section, or as a council, we could pull that item.
Yeah, and I think it just gives clarification too, because the connotation of if we do a study session versus if we just decided to call it, what it technically is, a special meeting. I think that kind of has a different connotation. Like sometimes we have to do special meetings because we have to there's something that maybe emergency or is like on a timeline, so we have to get it done by then. So I feel like that might throw.
That was like my comment of like, we don't want to be like, oh, this is a special meeting. It's like we're always running off of special meetings and what's going on, and.
Yeah, because I've gone through a slew of special meetings for a specific topic, and it definitely takes on a whole other connotation. So I think that just sticking with the study session, like it describes exactly what we're doing.
And when the mayor goes over future meetings tonight, we have one that's scheduled for November 6th, which is a special meeting, a special joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the City Council to discuss the draft housing element. So that's a specific purpose, and staff working with the consultant will make sure that the wording for that matter is very specific as to the discussion that will happen and what, if any, direction will be given to staff.
Okay. So tonight because I know that Councilwoman Sharp says she's ready to make a motion. So this motion is dealing with the City Council handbook and not necessarily the Commissioner's handbook. Is that correct?
If possible, I would like to give direction. It doesn't even need to be through a motion. I mean, as long as there's a consensus that you're good with the red line as it is, and then we can take up the commission handbook and give me some direction.
Yeah, so we'll do council handbook first instead.
Oh, no, I think that I'll just give a thumbs up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. So we're okay with direction on the City Council handbook. Okay.
And if I can also, I think, Mr. Ham brings up some points. There's some clarification language that I could add to those sections that helps make it clearer and just bring that in the final resolution. I think I'll go back and I can listen to it, but I took pretty good notes here, so I think we could make that.
Okay. And then just discussing on the Commissioner handbook, like in the past, the policy was in appointing of the commission. I think there's the language that says the mayor with approval of the council, appoints and recommends that commissioner to that office, but it doesn't say like with the interview process and who's involved in the interview process and the policy. And I know the policy was different a while back. I've been a part of many interviews for commissioner, being on the planning commission or the parking and traffic, and it's kind of like, it seems like we're changing that policy with what is said in the current council handbook that is proposed. And I just wanted to get like the idea of like, why are we changing that policy? It used to be like the mayor and a designee on the council to